I'm Mark Settle, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Deanna Ballew for this edition of the Modern CIO newsletter. Deanna is coming to us live this morning from Madison, Wisconsin, where she's the Chief Innovation Officer of a company called Widen. Widen is a digital asset management firm, and I'm going to ask her a little bit about that here in a minute. But in getting ready for this call, I was just thinking about the title of Chief Innovation Officer. If you don't have the job, it sounds very desirable, and but to think that a whole company would look at you as like, oh yeah, she's in charge of innovation. She's going to be responsible for all the innovative things that happen around here. I don't know if that's a job I would necessarily sign up for. So Deanna, if you would maybe give the audience a little introduction to Widen, its services, its customers, the size of the operation, and then some insight into your responsibilities there as the Chief Innovation Officer.
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you for having me here, Mark. Widen's been around since 1948. So we like to say that we're a software company that predates the internet. So we started off as an engraving company, then transitioned into print, and then in the 2000s moved into a software company. And that's when we moved into the data market. So as we moved into digital asset management, it was really around solving the problems for our customers that we had then in the print business. And then we ended up taking that into the market and selling digital asset management to marketing departments and enterprise and mid-market businesses. So we serve many different industries. So anything from the financial and services to manufacturers to hospitality, educational, nonprofits, basically anybody with a marketing team that has content and digital assets that need to be managed, and they have a brand reputation that they want to, maintain and get out to the world. We also just introduced our PIM offering, or Project Information Management offering. So this, goes hand in hand with the digital assets that you need for your products, but also all of that rich product content that you have that you need to get out to all of the channels. So your print channels, your digital channels, your e-commerce, your e-tailers. It's just an explosion of content, whether that's description or images or video or 360, and we all have experienced shopping online. And this is now a new normal, and we need to be able to help our customers and our marketing teams get their products and their brands out to all of these channels.
So before we move on to the innovation role, so would you sell your services both, say, directly to a for-profit company, but also to another, maybe kind of a business that's a go-between that the company's turned over some of their marketing activities to? Is there two different kinds of customers?
Yes, we do have, the direct to business, but we also have agencies. So if that's what you're referring to. So we do have some agencies who are doing marketing and creative work for their own customers.
Okay. Okay, so what does a Chief Innovation Officer do at Widen?
Yeah, so am I in charge of all innovation? No, not by the long shot. However, I am in charge of making sure that we focus on the discipline of innovation and an opportunity pipeline beyond what we have in front of us every day. So what we really honed in on over the last few years is, where are we innovating and what's our focus? And while over the 15 years I've been at Widen, we've tried a couple different products and get those into the market, or we did hackathon days, or we did 10% time. We just lacked the ability to get things launched as new businesses. So what we've been doing is really honing our innovation skills, and that's with experimentation and focusing on problems that our customers have. And what we realized was 90% of our focus was really on our core offering of DAM and PIM, which is great. We're innovating every single day there. We innovate on our processes, our roles, our teams, the offerings and solutions that we deliver. But to really diversify our revenue growth, we want to innovate on our businesses. So as a Chief Innovation Officer, I'm overseeing all of our R&D activities, but really also making sure that we have a pipeline of opportunities that we're going to then experiment and de-risk to see what will be the next best business opportunity for Widen, so that we can start getting some revenue returned in, let's say, a 2 to 3 year time span. So really honing in on that and to say, how can we diversify our revenue growth as we grow here?
So what kind of governance structure is in place? Do you bring ideas forward at different stages of development on a quarterly basis, or how does that work?
Yep. So the pipeline is a variety of different areas that we're focusing on. So first of all, we have a strategy to say, where are we going to play? We use a playing to win framework for a strategy. So we're kind of focusing like, what are we looking for? And one of the places that we're focused on is adjacent innovation. So that means that it's something that's familiar to us. It's not completely brand new, but also we're not necessarily looking for transformational innovation. We're a privately owned company. So it's not something that we're going to go out and be able to necessarily be able to fund a brand new market that's going to take 10 to 15 years to gain adoption. So we're putting, those pieces together. And then based on that, we're doing a lot of market research as well as customer research or user research. What are the pain points? What are the desirable areas for us to focus on? We just did a round of research over the spring here, right during, the pandemic hitting, and it's been interesting to see some of the pain points just come to light now that everybody's working remotely, now that digital channels are taking off, now that customer service is so crucial in order to build that customer relationship, to really build your brand and to keep your customers. So we've uncovered a lot of different opportunities that we will then have to narrow in on.
Well, now I'm getting much more excited about the role. So you're talking into liking this role. Now at Widen, many of our members of our audience here today work in IT on a regular basis. And tell us a little bit about how the IT group there interacts with the different functional groups like product development or just in general. These days, there's the more legacy kind of model of a very centralized IT group that handles almost all the applications and infrastructure. At the other end of the spectrum, you've got a lot of the kind of cloud native companies that we have here in the Valley where many of the applications are distributed out into the functional groups. What are the rules of engagement there at Widen?
So I would say we have our software team has grown throughout the years. And when I started, we did have that traditional IT team and we had our own data center. And when I say traditional IT team, they're the ones that you would have to ask for to provision resources, to make sure you would have a server to deploy your code on, to make sure everything was running. In 2009, we transitioned to AWS. And at that time, our IT team had a transition too. So this is really where we had to start seeing that transition from IT into DevOps. And I managed and oversaw the software engineers and the software development team, as well as the infrastructure team eventually, just to bring the two teams together so that they could work efficiently together. And then in 2016, we transitioned from DevOps to SRE, System Reliability Engineering team, to really hone in on the scalability and the reliability of our production and development environments. So we don't have a traditional IT team at Widen anymore. As we've transitioned away from our internal data center, so has our IT team.
What about the corporate applications like finance and HR, et cetera?
Yep. So that's going through a bit of some growing pains at this moment. So we actually allowed those to be owned and oversaw by those departments, and that grew a little bit out of control. So now we are formalizing a business operations team, which is going to oversee the internal business systems. As we got away from our data center, we went to mostly hosted solutions for we went to Google. All of our solutions that we use for finance are into a lot of our tools are all hosted or SaaS based. So we don't have a huge need for that internal IT function, but we still have help desk and support and things like that for our internal employees, and that's falling under the business operations.
Just out of curiosity, where will that report in? Will that be in the CFO's organization or?
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the last topic I wanted to engage you on is along the lines of what we've just been talking. There's a kind of an interesting new philosophy that's evolving that IT groups, conventional IT groups, should really take on more of the mindset and characteristics of product development teams. And they should think about, the services that they're delivering as really a product and look at those services through the prism or eyes of their end users, try to make the experience of the end users more frictionless and intuitive in nature. And this is kind of an ongoing debate. And it's actually a pretty lively one here in the Bay Area because there are many startup companies here, and well-established companies too, in which the IT teams have been merged into the product development area, much along the lines of what you described, but in a wholesale way. So the corporate applications are in there with the engineering team as well. The people responsible for handing out laptops and keeping the Wi-Fi up in the corporate office are inside product engineering as well. So, so what's your view about that? I mean, do you think there's benefit in that mindset, or do you think that's kind of just some kind of semantical overlay that really just gets in the way of doing real work?
I do think that there's definitely benefit. I think we can get stuck in the black and whiteness sometimes of the words, like the words of agile or the words of, waterfall or Six Sigma. Like, I think that can get us stuck into what really matters when you get down to this conversation. I would say too, with my experience as VP of product development for several years, I oversaw, our product team, our software engineers, our SRE team, our research and design team. And the core function was bringing all of those teams together in alignment to deliver value to our customers with the least amount of risk possible. And so by bringing all of those people together, that means that we had to focus on the stability and the reliability, not only of our production environments, but of our development environments, because we have to get that value out to our customers. So it just brings a different mindset into, what is the role of IT when it comes to product development. I have also focused very heavily on not bringing in those corporate structures into that team, because having competing priorities of what you might need to ensure that you can get your next financial report with the customer value, like those two things, they don't equal each other. That's like trying to prioritize apples and oranges. You just cannot do that. So, because at the end of the day, your customer's probably going to always come first, and then you're never going to get the internal functions done. I mean, I've been there, we've done that. So that's why we have them in two separate portions of our organizations. But I would also say that debate that we're having right now, especially when you look at the startups that you're talking with, technology moves fast, but the software solutions, they just move so much faster than technology. I mean, with the rise of infrastructure as a service, there are really no barriers to getting a new solution up and going. In 12 to 18 months, you can have brand new competitors in this space. And that's exactly what we're seeing in this marketing technology space. It's very, very well funded. And competitors that weren't there 2 years ago are now coming up, and now they're in our deals. And these are enterprise deals, and they're able to make a name for themselves, and they're able to have an experience and do a lot with that additional marketing and sales dollars that they have. So it's not really a matter of maybe the experience that we want to provide and say, for IT teams, think of your software engineers as customers. It's really a matter of staying competitive in the market and being able to get value out to your customers. If you have any roadblocks to your development pipeline, to your deployment pipeline, that just means that your customers don't get value as quickly as those startups, as those other solutions. So I would say that traditional maybe IT mindset of gatekeepers, that has to go away, because you won't be able to move fast enough. So now, how do you get into a different mindset, not as of gatekeepers, but of continuous improvement, of delivering value? And product development and that mindset, it has that mindset and that capability of putting a roadmap out there, of saying, what problems do you have? How can we, make your pipelines, your CI, your CD pipelines, very fast and efficient, and really make that experience of creating products and creating software smooth and easy, and be removing every barrier possible.
I do think most application support teams these days have moved to some form of agile, and so they're delivering enhancements on a much more frequent basis, maybe every 2 weeks, maybe every 3 weeks, as opposed to, I think if you went back in time, a lot of times there were quarterly updates. There'd be a system freeze maybe in the 6th week of the quarter or the 8th week of the quarter, and then all major systems would receive their quarterly update, and then you'd kind of move on from there. And that's not the way the world works these days. But that's a whole, we could go down that road. There are some subtle and in some ways significant differences between the boundary conditions or the operating principles, and you touched on one of them, which is priorities. And so I always tell people, if you're in product development, ideally there's a product manager who is telling you exactly, what needs to get done. When you're in IT, you work for all the other employees in the company. They all have an idea of what they want, IT to do for them. And sorting those priorities out tends to take up a lot of cycles and energy. This has been great. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I look forward to chatting again. It's been great to meet you.
This is nice as well. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.